Well, hello. Man, I hope that you're having a great day so far, and I just wanted to personally thank you for joining us for Obi-Wan Online. As we start this message, I have a question for you. Have you ever had something like this happen before? You drive to the store, you park your car, you're in the store for like 15.3 minutes, you come back outside, and you forget where you parked. It's like, how did that even happen? I was just out here like 15 minutes ago. Or how about this one? You lay your keys down like 3.6 seconds ago, and then you go to find them, and you don't even know where you put them. It's like, man, how did I forget something so quickly? Or how about this one? You're about to say something, but then someone accidentally interrupts you, but it's only for like 9 seconds. And so they ask you 9 seconds later, hey, what were you going to say? And you're like, I forgot what I was going to say. It's like, man, it's astonishing. I could go on and on about all the things that we forget so easily, so quickly at times. It's astonishing how much we forget. And sometimes we forget things that only affect us for a moment, like losing our keys. Sometimes, though, we forget things that can have a big effect on us. And we're starting a new series called Forgotten Virtues. And as you'll see throughout this series, if we remember to do or live by these virtues that we're going to address, they have the potential to bring positive change to your life, to my life, and to even others around us. So I want to share a story from the life of Jesus that reveals the forgotten virtue. Now, I want you to pay close attention to see if you can pick up on the forgotten virtue before I reveal it. So pay attention to the story. The story starts out with Jesus entering a village. And as he entered the village, 10 men were there, but they stayed at a distance because they had leprosy. Because it was contagious, people who had leprosy had to stay at a distance, and they also had to announce that they were near. And I want to ask, could you imagine, put yourself in their shoes. Could you imagine going through this? The isolation alone would have been intense as you couldn't be around family or friends. On top of that, the very thing that made people not want to be around you, and you had to announce it, stay away. Don't come near me. I have leprosy. I'm sure it would affect us greatly. And so as Jesus was walking in, they interacted with him, but at a distance. Let's take a look at that interaction. In Luke 17, it says this, and they called out in a loud voice. I want you to hear their desperation. Jesus, Master, have pity on us. They just had a huge request for Jesus. How would he respond? Would he respond the way society would, or would he respond differently? What would his answer to their request be? And when we have requests for God, isn't that how we are? We don't know how he's going to respond. Will he say yes? Will we have to wait? Let's see what Jesus' response to them is. And in Luke 17, the story continues. Jesus saw them and said, "Go, show yourselves to the priest." Here's what's so cool. While they were on the way, they were healed. Now, the reason he told them to go to the priest is because they were the ones who had to inspect if someone's leprosy was gone. And then if they got a clean bill of health, they could re-enter society. But all 10 were healed. Could you imagine how awesome and exciting they must have, how excited they must have been. Jesus healed them. He took away a huge problem from them. He took their embarrassment and their shame. As they were walking along, could you imagine if it was you and you're like, wow, like it's going away. It's healed. Problem solved. Embarrassment and shame gone. The Bible goes on to share that one of them ends up coming back to Jesus. In fact, he was so grateful that he threw himself at Jesus' feet. And as he did this, Jesus asked a very revealing question. Let's look at it. And again, I'm giving you a hint here. Let's see if you can pick up on the forgotten virtue, okay? In Luke 17, he says this. Jesus asked, "Weren't all 10 healed? Where are the other 9? Didn't anyone else return and give praise to God?" Did you pick up on the forgotten virtue? It's gratitude. You know, this real life story is an evidence that it can be forgotten. Think about it. 9 people went on with their lives. It doesn't even mean they were bad people. They just went on with their lives. Only one took the time to come back and thank Jesus. Guys, this story throws the gauntlet down for each of us. It begs the question, will I be like the 9? Or will I be like the one who decided to live their life thankful before God? Now I believe all of us would say, I want to be like the one. But the thing is, thankfulness doesn't always come naturally. You know what often can come naturally, or at least sometimes? Complaining. Here's a couple examples. Sometimes it can be easier to gossip about someone than to find things about them to be thankful for. Or how about this one? Think about this one. When are you more apt to spend time leaving a review? When you've had a good experience or a bad experience? Now, don't hear me wrong. There's nothing wrong with leaving a low review. That's not the point. I'm asking when it's easier to leave a review. Because thankfulness doesn't always come naturally, let's spend some time discovering how to be thankful so it can be a virtue we live by instead of something that we forget about. So number one, if you're going to be someone that lives your life thankful before God, number one, thank right away. You remember what the one did? He turned around and went back to Jesus. He wasn't going to do anything else until he thanked him. Now let's make it personal. Here's why it's important to thank right away. Life continues. And if we're not careful, we can just move on with life, not acknowledging the work that he's doing in our lives. Again, the 9 weren't necessarily bad people. They may have just wanted to move on with their lives. It's like, cool, it's time to go be with family and friends. It's time to go see the sights again. It's time to move on. When God answers your prayers, take some time to thank him right away. Because if we don't, life could just move on and we could lose an opportunity to thank him for what he's done. Here's another thing. Not only does life continue, other needs will arise again soon. Again, think of the 9. It's like, yes, it's time to get a job. And then it's like, I have bills to pay again. I have a life to live. It's like, Jesus, can you give me a job? Please help me to get a job. And I don't want you to hear me wrong. There's nothing wrong with continuing to ask him for help. But when we have requests, God wants us to present them to him. He wants us to be dependent on him. That said, we can go from request to request because we often have need after need. And our relationship with God at that point, if that's the pattern, it can become one-sided. Did you hear that? It can become one-sided because all we're doing is asking and taking and petitioning, but not thanking, praising, or loving. Let me give an example. Request. God, I'm behind on my bills. Please help me. Okay, cool. That went through. Okay, God, I hope I get the promotion I want. And then another request. Please take care of my family member who's sick. God, please help me in this situation. Again, nothing wrong with the requesting. Don't take that away from this message. The thing is, we can do this without ever taking the time to say thank you. Do you notice the pattern we can get stuck in? So if you desire to live a life thankful before God, thank Him right away. Going back to the Philippians, we're going to connect with a verse here in Philippians. It's Philippians 4. And it's often brought up when someone's talking about replacing worry with peace. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to turn your worries into prayers. But there's an ingredient here that can often get overlooked. So let's read Philippians 4. It says this: "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition," here's the ingredient that can get overlooked, "with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." Did you see the ingredient? I made it very obvious for a reason. See, when we present our requests to God, He wants us to do it with thanksgiving. And if you're going to be someone who lives a life of thanks before God, then number 2, don't let petitions prevent gratitude. It's important to not let our petitions, our requests, to prevent us from being thankful. God wants us to be thankful even when we have a need, even when something is difficult, even when something isn't resolved yet, even when we have an unmet desire. Here's one reason why. There's several reasons why God wants this, but here's one reason why. You guys notice that I have a carpet here, and I'm going to put it on the floor and pretend that this carpet is my petition carpet. Okay? Here's why, if we're not careful, that's just a petition carpet. Here's what can happen. God, please do this. God, I'm behind on my bills. God, help my family member that's sick. God, do this in my life. God, I need you to do this. And I hope, again, you're not hearing it the wrong way. Petitions are good. He encourages us in Philippians 4 in every situation to present our requests to God. But if we're not careful, we can just get trapped in our petitions. God, I hope that you do this. God, would you please do this? God, please do this in my life. It becomes all we see. It becomes all that we're focused on. God, I'm struggling right now. God, it's really hard. But you see, when we step out of the petition carpet, the petition trap, yeah, God, I do have this need in my life, but thank you for being faithful. God, my family member or my friend does have this need, but thank you for still being by my side. Thank you for still being by their side. Yeah, God, I really am hoping that you're going to come through in this way. There's just something I really want for my life. But man, thank you for all the blessings that you've already given me. Thank you for my family. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my job. Thank you for providing for me. Do you see why it's so important to not let our petitions prevent gratitude. Not only because God deserves our gratitude no matter what we're going through, He knows being thankful is what helps us step out of the trap of only seeing our current bad situations or requests. It helps us see that we have so much already. Now, let me be transparent. I've had times in my life where I ended up where God ended up coming through. I had some petitions. I had some requests for Him. I had some hopes and desires, and God ended up coming through. And I thought to myself, man, once it was over and God came through, I was like, man, I wasted so much of this past season worried when God had the answer the whole time. I could have enjoyed this season so much more, but what happened to me? I got trapped in the petition trap. And again, don't take that the wrong way. We need the petition, but it can't be to the point where it's all we see or all we focus on. We need to step out and be thankful as well, because thankfulness is a key to keeping us from being a slave to our bad circumstances or even our unmet wants. I'm sure most of us have something that we're hoping God will do. That's awesome. Keep asking. That said, besides the request, you have so much to be thankful to God for too. See, petitioning and being thankful doesn't have to be an either-or situation. It can be a both-and situation. Life is about petitioning, and life is about being thankful. Think about this. Having a request or being in a difficult situation doesn't have to take away your thankfulness. If you have a request for God, you're not being fake or you're not ignoring your serious circumstances by being thankful. It's a both and. You're just stepping out of the trap, realizing that there's so much to be thankful for. And so if you desire to live a life that's thankful before God, don't let your petitions, which are, again, they're good. Keep asking, but don't get so focused on them that that's all you end up seeing, and it prevents you from being thankful before God as well. I want to share one more story from the Bible that can help us live thankful before God. And it's about His people, the Israelites. And it was during a period of time where His people were living and wandering through a desert. God had done some great things for them so far. Let me just name a few. He helped them escape brutal generational slavery that lasted hundreds of years. Through His power, they had been freed from that. They even saw God's power on display while they were trying to escape. They were stuck between dying by sword, by the people that were trying to come after them, or by drowning. They're like, oh, it's like, crap, what do we do now? It's like we have the sea in front of us and we can just drown with all of our kids, family, and animals, or we can die by the sword of these people trying to come get us. But God does something incredible right before their eyes. He literally parts the sea that they were in front of so that they could be on dry ground and walk on dry ground so that they could escape. Could you imagine? Again, put yourself in their shoes. You think you're going to die. It's not just a bad day. You think you're going to die, and you see this miracle happen that helps you escape. It was incredible. And now they're free, but they're living in the desert, and they needed to eat. So God provided manna to sustain them. We don't know exactly what manna is, but it was described as something like a sweet wafer. And every time God provided it, which, by the way, He provided it daily, it was a miracle. But at some point, it got repetitive to them. This manna got repetitive. And some people started complaining about the manna. They started remembering the food they ate in slavery. It's like, man, at least when we were in slavery, we were able to eat meat. I wish we had that again. And man, something else that we had. We had such delicious fruits and vegetables to eat. And I don't think it was wrong to reminisce and desire for fruit or vegetables or meat per se. I think what they said next was the kicker. Then they said something like this at some point. They said this: we were better off back there. Whoa. It must have been a huge slap in the face to God. God's like, wait, what? After all I've done for you, all the miracles you've seen that were a part of setting you free, and you were better off in slavery because of a little meat and a few fruits and vegetables? Without getting into all the details, let me just say this. God wasn't happy. And who could blame him? He had done so much for them. Here's the thing. His people, the Israelites, they were physically free, but they were still trapped. And let's make this personal now. As Christ followers, if we're not careful, even though we're free in Jesus, we can still be trapped in our minds and spirits. Let me share a story with you when I was a teenager. I don't know if any of you remember, there was this cool technology, this amazing technology that came out called a Game Boy. Yeah, you could actually play games, good games, without a TV. You could be on the road and on vacation, and you could be playing this Game Boy, as long as the battery was charged, of course. You didn't need to plug it in. You didn't need to be at a TV. It was incredible. Yes, I realize the graphics nowadays like blow Game Boys out of the water, but if you remember, that was like one of the best back then. And they came out with like color Game Boy. It was crazy. It was awesome. You could actually play games without a TV or without plugging something in. I remember wanting one so badly. I was hoping I was going to get one that Christmas and hoping that my parents would. I probably dropped some hints of wanting a Game Boy, telling them that I wanted a Game Boy, talking about it. I probably did some of those things, don't fully remember. It was a long time ago. But I remember getting to Christmas Day and just wanting the Game Boy, anticipating getting a Game Boy. It was going to be a great Christmas. And God bless my parents, I didn't get the Game Boy. I got some cheap knockoffs, and I wasn't happy. I was not happy at all. I was so not happy that when my younger brother came to me and was like, "Hey, Chris, how's your Christmas going?" I was like, "Terrible." And he was like, "Why?" I was like, "Because mom and dad didn't give me a Game Boy. It's so dumb. It's so stupid." You know, I share that story. Actually, I wish I could say this was the only time I've been trapped. It's like, yeah, guys, the only time I've been trapped in life was when I was a teenager about a Game Boy. Now, man, I wish I could say that, but I've been trapped too many times in life. Here's why. The Israelites and me, I don't know about you, but the Israelites and me have something in common. We forget that we still have things to be thankful for. If they would have just remembered all that God had already done, If I would have just remembered everything my parents had done for me, I mean, man, they were always there for me. They were supportive. They did get me a lot of cool gifts a lot of times, just not that year with the Game Boy. Man, my parents provided a roof over my head. There was so many things that they took on us on awesome vacations. They did so many great things. I could keep going and going and going, but we need to get on with the message. If I would have just focused on that, which this story leads me to another thing we can do if we have a desire to live a thankful life. It's number 3. It's simply this: remember. It's remembering what God has already done is another thing that helps us not be trapped. Again, it reminds us to be thankful for what God has already done. And it reminds us that God can come through again. Remember the box? Remember the trap we put ourselves in? It helps us, when we remember, it helps us step out because it reminds us of all the great things He's done. Do you know that petitioning God can still produce worry in us? I remember realizing that in my prayers before. Why does that happen? Well, there's lots of reasons that petitioning God can still produce worry, but one of those reasons is because the focus stays about the petition, and then we become trapped. Again, back on the mat here, back on the carpet. It's like, man, God, I really hope that you come through on this. It's really difficult right now. It's really hard. And again, there's nothing wrong with petitioning. I'm going to keep saying that. It can't be the sole focus. But if we were to step out and be like, whoa, you know what? I was in a similar situation about a year ago, and you came through. I didn't know what I was going to do then, but you did. Man, you know, God, I have this need, but you've always provided for my needs. Thank you so much for doing that. You know, God, I don't always get what I want when I petition. I get that. I'm not you. But man, you gave me grace when I needed forgiveness. Thank you so much for the grace that you give me. Thank you for everything that you've done for me. You see, it's stepping out of the trap. It's so important to remember, because if we don't, since life can often take us from need to need, our faith, our relationship with God, even our lives in general, can be defined by what we don't have. Whoa, wait a minute. Let's stop. Let's let that sink in. It's super important. It's what happened to the Israelites, and it's what can happen to us. When they didn't have, what they didn't have was skewing their view of God and their lives. We don't have this meat. We don't have these vegetables. We were better off back there. And when this happens to us, it's hard to notice what God is doing, because all we're noticing is what He's not doing. We see what we don't have instead of what we do have. This is why remembering and thankfulness is so important. It reminds us of what God has already done. It helps us to see the things that we do have. So I have a question for you, and it's going to be up on the screen as we start to close. I really want you to ponder this question either before your head hits the pillow or maybe sometime this week. How could working toward thanking Him as much as I petition Him change my life? Seriously, think about that. Again, nothing wrong with petition. It's just we don't want to be trapped by it. It can't be the sole focus. So to not be trapped by it, how could working toward thanking Him as much as you petition Him change your life? And starting today, Look for opportunities where you can thank him right away. Remind yourself to thank him, even when you have requests. Make it a both and scenario, not an either or scenario. Because gratitude can be a forgotten virtue, but it doesn't have to be forgotten in your life. It can become a lifestyle. Let's pray. You know, as possibly your head is bowed and your eyes are closed, or whatever you're doing in this moment as we're praying, I want you to take a moment where you remember something that God has done for you. So I'm not going to even pray right away. I'm going to take a moment or two. I want you to take a moment or two right now just to remember something God's done for you, and then I'll pray to close off this part of the online service. God, we thank you that in your scripture, in your word, in your Bible, that these virtues are not forgotten. We may forget about them at times, but they're not forgotten to you. And so I pray for this thing called gratitude. Would you help each of us to grow in gratitude? We're not going to be perfect, but just to grow in gratitude, so that it's something that's not forgotten. It's something that does become a lifestyle. Help us with that, God. Even this week, help us with that. And there may be one or two of you watching right now that you've never given your life to Jesus, but today you want to thank him for what he ultimately did for you. He did go to the cross for you. He did die for your sins. He does want to forgive you, and you can thank him for that. And you can ask him to be your forgiver and leader. It's simple. You can just start out just in that way. You could say something like this: thank you, Jesus, for dying for me. Thank you, Jesus, for thinking of me. I don't take it for granted. I don't oversee it anymore. Today, be my forgiver. Thank you for also being my leader. Lead my life. And one of the things, Lord, please help me. I'm not going to be perfect at it, but start to build a life of gratitude in my life. And God, for everyone watching, for all my friends watching, would you please show them maybe an area or an attitude or whatever that needs to be infused with gratitude. Maybe they've been petitioning lately and you want that. But maybe along with the petition, doing it with thanksgiving. But would you show them today maybe an area that you want them to work on? Maybe it's in their job or their marriage or in their friendships and just in their life in general. Maybe it's even in their relationship with you, God, where they just to be more thankful towards you as they continue to petition and request. Thank you, God, that you do hear our prayers, that you do want us to petition. But we thank you as well that you remind us that, hey, this thing's about thankfulness as well. It's about petitioning and it's about being thankful. We love you, God. Thank you for first loving us. And we pray these things in your name. Amen.